Sarah Hagstrom is the founder and CEO of the Coach and Grow Co., a name I really love, and a business that helps health coaches grow their businesses online. Sarah came to the business coaching world after having her own incredible success as a health coach. One of the best ways for new and aspiring coaches to learn business is to learn it from someone who put in the arduous reps to get to success themselves. And Sarah takes us through that journey, what she learned and what she teaches coaches now. I don't know if this is a popular opinion or not, but I, for one, cannot get enough of hearing from health coaches who have had massive success and are now helping other health coaches achieve the same. I hope you enjoy. Hi, I'm Erin Power.
And I'm Laura Rupsis.
We're certified health coaches, and this is Health Coach Radio.
This podcast is about the art, science, and business of health coaching.
We share our insider tips to help you become a better coach and entrepreneur.
And we interview expert guests to discover how they've made it in this growing field.
It's time for health coaches to make an impact.
It's time for Health Coach Radio. All right, Sarah, how are you?
I'm doing well. I was really looking forward to this episode today and chatting with you guys.
Oh, we love chatting coaches. Yeah. We could talk about this all day.
I know, it's so fun.
Yeah. So we want to hear all about you in particular, how you started down this path and how you got here. Do you mind sharing, 5-minute origin story there?
Of course, I would love to. So my journey started, with health coaching in I would say in 2014. And I think it started how most health coaches' journeys start. I was struggling with my own health. And I never really knew about nutrition and wellness. And I grew up with a single mom who struggles with addiction. And so I really grew up in a home where fast food was the norm, fending for yourself. I had a lot of illnesses growing up. I had, IBS, I had hives all over my body, mostly now, with the work I've done, just from stress. It was stress, not an appropriate environment for a child to grow up in. And so that caused a lot of health conditions. And so before I became a health coach in 2014, I really struggled and was searching and searching and searching. And one day in college, my boyfriend, now husband at the time, he introduced me to a documentary. You guys may have seen it, Food Matters. And at the time I was like, wait, food plays a role? I had no idea. It was just mind blowing to me. Yeah. And so I started changing my diet. And at the time I was getting ready to go to law school. I was working at a law firm. And I just was for me, work, I was I want to be successful. And I saw lawyers on TV. They looked successful. So I was I want to be successful. That's what I'm going to do. I need to be able to take care of myself. I had this very masculine drive, which I think can be really beneficial for the coaching space and being a business owner, but it also can end in burnout, which, we can talk about. But I realized that the path I was going on wasn't the one that I wanted. And so I transitioned to health coaching and started going down that path. And that is really where my entrepreneurial journey started. And I did that for 5 years as health coaching. And we can talk about, any questions you guys have about that. And I was able to build my business online, work for myself. I brought my husband on board, who's also a health coach, and started growing our team. And there was a day in the summer where a coach reached out, another health coach, and she was like, can you teach me about plant-based nutrition? Because that was my niche at the time. I really focused on incorporating more plants and eating seasonal diet. And I was like, sure, yeah, of course, I'll help you. And I think this is something that a lot of health coaches don't realize, but health coaches sometimes need health coaches.
Right.
And so a lot of my clients now are like, this health coach, she keeps asking about my program. What do you think that's about? I'm like, well, did you ask her? She might need some support. She might need some help. And so I started working with her. She learned about plant-based. She started incorporating it in her business. And then she asked me, can you help me with my business? I want to grow my business like yours. At the time I was running a membership site. She's like, I don't know about the tech. I want to work fully online. And I had serious imposter syndrome. I was like, no, there's no way. Like, I'm not a business coach. That is not my realm. Like, there's so many really successful coaches and business owners making millions. I was definitely not at that point at that time. And she was like, but I want to learn from you. And this is a lesson that I'm always sharing with my clients because it's so powerful that, our story and what we bring to the table, people want that, even if there's other people who you might think are more successful or doing a better job or have more experience. And so she talked me into it. I was like, okay, yeah, like I'll help you. And we were able to grow her business full time in 6 months. And I was balancing both. I was doing health coaching and I was like coaching her. And my husband, Peter, he would always say after our sessions, like, who was that you were coaching last? And I would tell him, he's like, oh, you were so lit up. You really like that. Like, maybe there's more here that you could be doing. And so we put it out to our email list at the time. And I was like, is anybody else interested in getting support with their health coaching business? And I had 12 people reach out right away. And I was shocked. And all of them were like, we had been following you, like we stalk you, like I love what you're doing. And so I started doing both. And I was health coaching and I was business coaching. And it was really cool because all of the health coaches I was working with had the same values and were so in alignment with what I was sharing, which makes sense. If you think about building a community and building an audience, like when you share your message, you attract those people. And so I did both for a while, but then there came a day where I was doing both and I had 2 Instagram accounts and I had this message I wanted to share and I couldn't figure out where to share it. Which account do I share it on? And it seems so small, but it put me in a tailspin. And I just totally had a breakdown. I was like, I can't do both. It's too confusing. It's too stressful. It's just too much for me. And so I took some time and was like, which one do I want to move forward with? And I'm definitely the type who likes change and likes to switch things up. And at the time I was like, I've been doing health coaching, like let's transition to business coaching. And it was such an organic and natural transition because now I had all of these health coaches that I'd been working with, and I had all of these clients who needed a health coach now. And so I could just transfer them over to now my clients. And it was just so organic and so natural. And so that's what I've been doing now for the past 3 years with the Coach and Grow Co., which is our company where we help health coaches create their dream health coaching businesses online. So whatever that looks like to them, because everybody's dream is a little bit different.
Ooh, yes. Cool. Okay. So one thing that I liked about this story is that quietly, without you even noticing, you were growing an audience who wanted to work with you as a business coach, such that when you asked, hey, who wants help with their business? It was like 12 people were like, I thought you'd never ask. And this just really speaks to the fact that you had consistently put yourself out there with, I'm assuming, a very clear message and a clear point of view. And this whole know, like, and trust that builds over time when we're consistently putting ourselves out there. So I don't know, can you speak to that a bit more? What do you think it was about what you'd been putting out into the world that made these 12 initial people want to leap into working with you as a business coach?
Yeah, I think what you said about the know, like, and trust, I think that that's really powerful. I always say, like, it's really important that people know you, like you, trust you, and see you as somebody who can help them. And so I think that that was the other piece. They saw, what I was doing with my clients and they wanted to do the same thing. A lot of them are like, oh, I want to run a program like that. I want to host an in-person retreat, but I have no idea where to start. And so I think the knowing and liking and trusting is really huge. But then we also need like this picture of how can this person help me with my goals?
Yeah. Yeah. And I guess too, these folks are watching you live your life. I think that's the interesting part about Instagram specifically as a social media tool, because it's like, you get into your stories and you're just showing your life. Right. It's like, I'm this coach and I have this business. And also here's my life. Here's how it all shakes out. And that's really compelling because like somebody who wants to become an online entrepreneur probably doesn't want to be burning their brain out on a screen for 10 to 12 hours a day. They want to know how this fits in their life. Like, what does life look like when I'm an online entrepreneur? So I think that's the thing too, is to your point, it's like, people could see that you had created these programs and products that help clients, but also they're probably seeing your life and that you had, well, eventually you got to a point where you're balanced. You had to go through a little period of overwhelm first to get there, but they could see that.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think it is pretty important to think about, when it comes to growing a coaching business, is like, who do you want to be attracting? Like, I always talk about being intentional with how you're showing up and taking time for yourself. And it's so much easier to show up as your authentic self rather than, so many coaches reach out to me and they're like, oh, like, I don't want to have to put on makeup and I don't have to get ready every time I do a story. And I'm like, yeah, I never do that, because if I did that, I would never show up. Like, it's so hard. Right. But it's really easy if you just show up as you are. And the cool thing is you attract people who also like that. I posted a story the other night about how I'm not like a hot girl all the time. I was like, I'm not a hot girl all the time. In the evenings is the worst. Like, my husband, sorry, but like, this is what I look like. And so many people are like, oh my gosh, I totally relate to that. Like, I get that. I'm the same way, And so it's just like sharing authentically who you are, which I know can sometimes be hard. Because it feels foreign talking to like a camera, it's like, who's on the other end? And if I look back at my videos, because Facebook and Instagram are so great, where they're like 3 years ago, 4 years ago, I'm like, I don't want to see that, cringe. But I'm not as comfortable on camera or speaking as I am now. And that's just because it's practice, right? It comes with time. And I always say, like, don't judge your first video. I always say, do 20 videos. And then if you want to then say, okay, now I'm going to take some time and look at them and see how I can improve, do that. But that's different than every single thing you go to post or think about, you're critiquing, right? You're never going to be consistent if you do that. And that's not going to feel good. And at the end of the day, I want to feel good.
Yeah. Right. Also, people are worrying about a thing that doesn't need to be worried about, because in the early days, nobody's watching anyway.
It's true. So I would love to, kind of rewind a little bit back into how you built your first initial business. I assume you declared yourself a health coach, maybe graduated from a school or whatever the case may be. And what kind of support did you have getting started? Did you find that this was a sort of natural talent of yours? Did you have a specific methodology that you followed when you built your business? Because as you're coaching people now, I would imagine you have, advice and a methodology that you take people through. But how did you start?
Yeah, for me, like I was saying, my client who I first started working with, she grew her business in 6 months and was able to leave her job. I think it took me like 2.5 years. Mm-hmm. It took me a long time, because I didn't have a methodology, which we teach now at the Coach and Grow Co. And so it was really trial and error. It was just doing as much as I could. It was definitely like the time of hustle culture, which I feel like we're shifting out of, which I'm so happy about. But it was like, if you're not showing up every day, people forgot about you. That's not true. That's not true at all. It's like, if you're not emailing multiple times a day, if you're not, getting on live every day, if you're not doing all of these things. So I was doing all of those things, and just hoping that something would work out for me. And I think the thing that I had going for me, maybe like the natural talent, if you will, is just the perseverance and continuing on, like when things get hard, just growing up as an only child and, really having to take care of myself from a young age. I kind of have that grind that I can tap into, even though, I don't recommend it, because you can only get so far with that. And so eventually, like, I would get a client or another client, but then like investing in my business and just like learning different strategies and techniques, eventually things started to stick. Like, one thing that was really huge for me was niching down and getting specific. I know like every business coach talks about that, but it was really powerful for me. And it allowed me to start filling up programs rather than having a few people in a program. I was able to get like 20 people, in a program at once. And I think that was really a turning point for me. I started to see how certain things would have a really big impact. Collaborations, I did a collaboration and a bunch of new people came in to my world and they were perfect, ideal clients. Whereas I would be posting on Instagram and maybe like, one out of every 5 would be like a perfect ideal client. And so I started noticing these patterns, and then I really doubled down on them and focused on those things that were really working.
Nice. Did you by any chance, because I know you talked about sort of this plant-based approach, but was stress and burnout a part of because there's so much in your origin story about like being this child of a single mom who was kind of wrapped up in addiction. And, you just said, I kind of grew up in, understanding how to grind and take care of myself and kind of being really bathed in hustle culture. Is this a part of sort of your methodology, like teaching to the idea of turning your back on hustle or managing hustle? Like how do you navigate that?
Yeah, definitely. And it's honestly been a newer evolution of my business. I had, like a health scare this year where it really forced me to settle down and slow down, like for the first time in a really long time. And it just got me thinking about business and the grind and the hustle and how it leaves so many entrepreneurs, mostly like health coaches, spiritual coaches, it leaves them out. It doesn't feel good for them to be online on a screen all the time. It doesn't feel good for them to be, some coaches will message me and they'll be like, oh my gosh, I was like taught I have to message 35 people a day. And the coach said I have to do it on the call. And it just feels so icky. And I was just like, yeah, like that doesn't feel good. And so many people need health coaches, but if these great health coaches feel like there's no room for them in entrepreneurship and in the business world, then we're doing them a disservice. We need to shift this. And so really what came from my journey this summer, I was struggling with back pain and sciatica. And like, I couldn't walk or stand for like longer than 30 minutes. And I wasn't sleeping through the night and I was so depressed. And I was like, how can I run my business like this? And then I thought about all of the health coaches who have kids and are working full time and trying to do this, it's like, how can they run their business? And so through that, this idea of 5 hours a week that we teach was born.
Okay.
And that's really like, if you look back at my journey and my story, that's kind of like how everything comes together. It's like something happens, this isn't working, this doesn't feel good, let's shift it. And so we teach now at the Coach and Grow Co. that you can create and market your business and sign clients in 5 hours a week.
You've got my attention. Actually, the sciatica story, it was like, oh, sciatica.
You guys had it?
Yes, this is the thing. This is a direct anecdote that can bring us. I got sciatica. I was working on a huge project. This was during the lockdowns, so I couldn't even go to the gym to let off any steam. I was working on this huge project. I was sitting in my armchair with my laptop on my lap, crushing this project. And that's what gave me sciatica, was sitting on my ass, doing this big project. And I was so grumpy because it was a health related project I was working on as a health coach. It's like, wow, I just destroyed my body by sitting on my butt for 12 hours a day for like 6 months straight, hunched over, bug eyes staring at the screen. It was such a frustrating experience. It's like, when you have sciatica, you can't do anything. You feel like an old, to your point, you can't sleep, you can't walk, you can't weight bear. It's just constant pain. And it was pain derived for me anyway, from sitting on my butt. Being sedentary, crushing computer work, which is not what I want to do. I did that in my previous career. I'm done.
Yeah.
So this 5 hours a week thing, very compelling, because then we have time for all the other things that are important to us, which I don't ever want health coaches to set. And I'm mad at myself that I set everything else that was important to me aside, and I won't do that again. But I also don't want to see health coaches doing that either. It's out of integrity to do that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's crazy how we fall into those patterns. I work with so many coaches who are coming out of 9-to-5s in corporate. And so they feel like they need to still work a 9-to-5. They're like, I'm out of my 9-to-5. I'm working for myself. And yet they're still like, well, it's 3:30. I'm tired, but like, yeah, it's ingrained in them. Yeah, exactly. Oh, yeah. So
I think coming at this too from folks, I feel like there's this archetype person who had some sort of a health transformation, or perhaps they've just always been interested in this field and for whatever reason never pursued it professionally. And now they're stuck in this job that pays the bills, but they're like, and they keep getting called back to this. So whether this was a personal health journey or whether this was something you've always been interested in, but never pursued it. Now you find yourself in this full-time job that doesn't serve you. It may likely be part of what made you sick. That was my story. But anyway, you've got this full-time job and you're like, okay, I'm out, but how am I going to get out? So you kind of have to hold down the fort there. And then typically people are going to take some sort of course, earn some sort of credential, learn what it is they don't know, which you will realize there's a lot of stuff you don't know and you will continue to learn over time, folks. So don't feel like you have to know it all to get started. So this sort of 5 hours a week, I think is compelling to anyone who's trying to get this thing going to the point where they are making enough income that they can move. Erin and I say this, we pound the table on, please don't feel as though you have to take this huge leap of faith into the void with no net underneath you. That is not smart. Don't do it. There has to be a way to mitigate the risk. So it sounds to me like this kind of process that you've put together might just be sort of the solution to that. Yeah. I think anybody, well, maybe not anybody. There are people that are even crazier busy than I was, but about an hour a day was the max that I had.
Yeah.
And so this would kind of fit in that wheelhouse. So you've got a methodology here where you were able to bring another coach to get from where she was to full-time in 6 months when it took you 2.5. So my guess is you were able to weed through all the crap that didn't work. Right. And then just kind of truncate all the stuff that did work. So do you mind sharing some of that with us?
Of course. Yeah, of course. Yeah. The thing that, I always tell coaches is you can get so much further if you're working on the things that are the most important and kind of moving aside from all of that. And I'll walk you guys through like the framework that I teach. But, I think like the one thing that every coach can do is just being really intentional. Like before you sit down to like create or work on your business, just asking yourself, like, what is the result that I want? Like, what is the outcome that I want? And really slowing down before you dive into it. Like one example is Instagram, like Instagram, like a lot of our coaches use Instagram. They like it and they hate it at the same time, right? It's like this love hate. It's fun to scroll, but then when it comes to like showing up, it's like a lot, or you post and it doesn't get the results you want. And so, if you just think about Instagram and you're going to do a reel, before you like sit down to like create the reel and like you look for the audio and all that, if you're just like, what is my intention? I want to grow my Instagram account, or I want to sign a client with this post, really coming from that place and then asking like, what is the message that will help with that? Right. And really slowing it all down, because what we're seeing is coaches, when they do this, when they take a really intentional approach, they can create one reel that gets them 100 new subscribers versus them creating 20 reels that gets nothing, no new subscribers, no client, nothing. And so really just being super intentional before you dive in can have a really, really profound effect on your business. So the 5 hours a week, what we kind of do with that. So I run a program called Launch Coach Grow, where we take coaches from brand new, newly certified, or some of them have been a coach for a year, but they haven't signed any clients. And really the goal is create the program, sign the client. Like that is like what we're working towards. Create a program that speaks to what you're all about, that you believe in, that you could talk about, and then start signing clients. And so each week we have a breakdown of what you can work on in 5 hours. And it follows the 4-part framework that we teach. And so the first part is niche and confidence. So making sure that the coach feels confident in their niche. And a lot of people feel really boxed in by the niche, but I think of the niche as kind of like a bigger picture. I think of it in simple terms, a problem that you solve for somebody, something that you help people with, but then the broader term is what you're all about. And so some people call them content pillars. I call them buckets, that are your personality that allows people to get to know you, kind of like Erin was talking about with the stories, right? Like people seeing you, it's like, what are those things you want to be known for? So we have the niche and the focus. And then the second one is social media, which is always evolving. So we are always changing that, always updating that. And really learning social media. Like, how can you utilize social media for your business, and how can you do it in a way that is really effective? So like I was talking about Instagram, and one thing that new coaches they need clients, they need a community, like I think Laura, you were saying like, there's nobody at the beginning. I had nobody at the beginning too, guys. Everybody starts with nobody, And so in social media, we're teaching like, okay, how can we create shareable content? How can we create a reel that your ideal client would share? So many coaches think about like, them being like the expert, which is important. But if you want new people, then you need that content to be shareable. And so really thinking about what would your ideal client share, which is a different way of thinking about it than most coaches go into social media with. So that's social media, that's 2. And then 3 is creating the program. And a lot of our coaches come from different certifications. And so they're using what they learned. Some programs they went to kind of gave them a program or taught a certain formula. And so what I've found is it's the program that they are given is usually not 100% in alignment with what they believe and what they could talk about. And so shifting it so it feels really authentic to them. And what I found is when you create a program that is different than maybe one you've been given, it stands out. You can price it how you want to price it. And so that's creation, that's 3. And then 4 is launching. How do we actually get people to sign up? And how do we do this in a way that feels authentic and isn't like fake scarcity and pressure? Like, how can we sell and launch your program in a heart-centered way that feels really good?
Awesome. That's a great approach. Hi, it's Erin Power here, co-host of Health Coach Radio. Fitness has always been a part of my life. I used to train clients one-on-one, and I still teach group exercise classes to this day. Fitness is how I got started on my journey to health coaching. Working as a fitness trainer, I always wanted to go deeper than the reps and help my clients incorporate fitness and movement into every aspect of their lives. I instinctively knew that reaching fitness goals depends on pulling the focus from performance and putting it on holistic, sustainable change. And that's exactly what the Primal Fitness Coach certification shows coaches how to do. Your clients deserve to move better, feel better, be pain-free, enjoy exercise, and love their bodies. The Primal Fitness Coach certification teaches you how to train people to be fit for life, to avoid injuries, increase mobility, develop lean muscle mass, protect joints, and optimize metabolic health. This well-rounded functional fitness certification covers best practices for daily movement, strength training and conditioning, HIIT exercises, sprinting, and more. It also includes practical hands-on coaching training and business development lessons to help you launch and grow a profitable fitness coaching business. Visit primalhealthcoach.com to learn more about the Primal Fitness Coach certification. Okay, I have so many follow-up questions. I was jotting.
Perfect.
So part number 1, niche and confidence. So this is like, what problem are you solving? What problem do you have the solution for? Like, and sort of like staking this claim as the expert with the solution. I love that as a starting place, because that's honestly how I like to think about niching as well. Is not like Sally drives a Toyota RAV4 and has a golden retriever and 2 children that are.
Erin, I tried that. That was the advice that I got. It was like, who's like your avatar? She's sitting down on the bus next to you, and I like would try that, like write all of these like lengthy posts like describing her, and it did not resonate at all.
Honestly, it's. I don't know. I used to have to do this when I worked in advertising. We had Steve and we had Heather, and these are the people we were talking to. Those are like big advertising accounts, right? But like that's not what this is. Like, and so I really do think a lot of times, just globally speaking about marketing and business development, coaches come in thinking they have to have this like very corporate, big business approach to it. It's like, no, you're a small business owner, you're a solopreneur. Probably we can take a more very personal approach to this. And so the idea of the coach staking a claim, I'm the expert in this, I do this one thing. I love that as a starting place. So, but the second thing the second sort of pillar in your approach is the social media. And you said learning social media, which I loved. I think I wrote that in big letters actually, and I was taking my notes. Learning social media. Oh my gosh, it's you have to learn how to do it. I think people just think like, I'm not good at it.
Right.
I don't like it. It's, whatever, all the things, but it's like, but you can learn to do it. You can learn to do hard things that you're not comfortable with.
Well, and I always say, like, would you enjoy it if it allowed 100 new ideal clients who you liked helping, you could help, come into your world, and they were asking you questions and engaging with you? And usually our coaches are like, oh yeah, I would like it then. That sounds great, And so I think there's like a few people, coaches, influencers who had this overnight success where they did one video and they talk about how this one video like grew their whole entire business. And so then coaches think, if I don't have this one video or I've shown up for 3 days, then I'm a failure. And I'm like, man, I showed up for years, before this happened. And I always say, like, those are unicorns, right? And like, maybe that will happen for you. I would love that to happen for you, but like, don't expect that to happen, because then you're going to be so disappointed.
Right. I was thinking of, I don't even want to share this anecdote, but I had gone to a business coach's live event. I'm not going to name any names in this story. Okay. I had gone to a live event that a very prominent business coach was running, and the business coach had a special guest speaker come up who had a huge YouTube audience, one of these enormous YouTube audiences. And we were going to learn how to grow a big audience like that. And the way this person had grown their audience is they took a video of themselves combing out their dreadlocks. So she had dreadlocks and she combed them out on YouTube, showed the process of combing out from dreadlocks to regular hair. And that went viral. And it's like, this doesn't feel actionable.
How does this translate to me? Like, how does this? Well, it's it reminds me of, we were hiring for a social media person for our team, and we had this girl talk about how she was messaging me so much. She really wanted the job. She's so good at like social media, and she really grew this big audience on a platform. I won't say which one. And so I was like, okay, like, can I see it? Like, I want to see some of this work, Well, all of the videos were of her dog, like just like looking at the camera, looking up, looking down, and had millions of followers. And which I'm like, of course, everybody loves like a cute dog, but like, how is that going to translate for our coaching business?
I think this is actually why people drag their heels on social media. It's like, it's so stupid. I'm sorry, it's all this stupid garbage, and you just happen to strike gold with a dog video or a dreadlock video. And so, at the risk of being very polarizing, and just in the realm of talking about kind of silly, goofy social media content, Reels, you mentioned them a few times. I cannot. This is one area where I have such a.
I think we're going into a coaching session. I'm like feeling it. I'm feeling it coming up.
Yeah. Well, I don't want to necessarily belabor the issue of Reels, but as an example, I can't imagine setting aside time in my day to go into my office here in front of my camera and do this. Mm-hmm. And like, I'm pointing at things. People are listening. I'm pointing at areas on my screen, which will there will be words there later when I put it into Reels, right? Like, to me, that's like such goofy content marketing. Yeah. But there's no denying that it definitely has a lot of reach. So we don't have to make this a conversation about Reels, because that's just my own personal.
Yeah. Which is very. I think a lot of people feel that way.
Yeah, it just feels so silly. That's just an errand thing. But if we zoom out on that particular hang up, that's kind of the hang up everybody has about social media. I don't want to take a picture of my lunch. It's so stupid. It's like, well, then don't. Mm-hmm. I don't want to stand here and point at words. Well, then don't. Yeah. You don't have to.
Exactly.
Especially when there's like 12 words. I'm like, I can't read that. What? I mean, I can see it being really impactful if your point, and it's like 3, like you're really, it's a fun song and everyone's kind of like, okay. And then I can get what you're trying to reach. And instead, I don't know how many times I've seen people point at like 12 things on a 20-second reel or however long it is. And I'm like, wait a minute, I'm like, if I have to go back and watch it 45 times to get a feel for what it is you're pointing at, it's probably not there, but it attracts people. So clearly video is super engaging stuff that's kind of catchy, and kind of what you can be known for. Some people are just phenomenal at it. And look, this rings a bell for me too, in terms of social media, because social media has always played a certain role for me. And to be fair, I'm absolutely one of those people that I'm like, I'm just not good at it. But if I'm honest, it's because I haven't taken the time to actually learn it.
Yeah.
And so that's what I really need to do. So do you, in terms of when you say learn how to use social media, is that something you teach? Is there a course out there you recommend? Or do you just have a really organic way for people to just hands-on learn how to use it?
Yeah. I have we have so much to talk about here, you guys. I feel like I could talk with you guys all day. So I have a signature program. It's called Launch Coach Grow, where we break down and teach social media. And I think there's a whole module on it. It's like 25 lessons. It's always getting updated. But I think the thing that really makes our program unique and different is it comes with a live community. So we do 6 months of community support. So we do coaching calls, we do live trainings. And so coaches are posting their social media captions, and we're helping them with it. Every single week we're posting like real ideas that are specific for health coaches, audios, and like how to actually break them down. So yes, I am actually teaching the social media. I wanted to touch on like the pointing and dancing, because I think that's what a lot of people think, but my podcast hasn't aired, but I actually had, a TikTok expert. She doesn't teach on TikTok. She's just really good at it. And she's a health coach. Her name is Adele Wong One. And she is so quirky and so fun and creative, but she is teaching self-mastery. She's teaching how to create a life you love. And I think she has like 170,000 followers on TikTok right now. And when you see it, you'll see like, oh, I'm actually learning a lot from this. And it goes with her personality. So I think some people actually do like to be creative, or they're kind of quirky, and they could really thrive with TikTok or Reels, or video. And another thing too, like with Reels, is you could actually, like, you guys are both amazing on audio. You could just do a reel of you doing a clip from the podcast, or sharing like a hot take. I think you said this is polarizing, sharing that, like that can be considered a reel. And I think another thing is, like, if you think about it, like what we found in our business, like we've played with paid advertising, and like that can get expensive. And like, I don't feel great, honestly, like giving money to Facebook. Like, it's not my favorite, you know what I mean? And so I could do that, or I could do a reel and I could reach all of these people for free, And so when you kind of think about the different approaches, for me, I kind of tips to like, okay, maybe reels aren't so bad after all, or short form videos.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think you're right. And so somebody that I follow who I really trust in the Instagram space is Shantae Cofield, the movement maestro. She teaches Instagram as well. And her reels are always, they're just informational. They're not goofy. Like and I love them and I watch them and I think this was great. So I have a really bad attitude about reels. And I know I do because I don't know. But the thing too, that for anybody else who's like me, is like, I really liked writing captions. That was always a joy for me, but writing a caption can become a reel. There's no reason why I can't recite my caption as a reel. So I've been thinking through, I've been getting better at it. But what you did say about reels that I thought was so great was your ideal client, or any of your online content, your ideal client should be loving it and sharing it, not other health coaches, not other people in your realm. It's like, we have to speak to the client. And I don't see that happening a lot in health coaching space. I see a lot of health coaches talking to health coaches or not even that, doing reels that establish them as being like smart. And like, I know everything about health. Look at all this health information that I know. And it's like, I don't think your ideal client cares.
And by the way, that's when all the trolls come out too. When you're out there.
It's true. Yeah. It's so true. It's so true. But the thing that's so crazy about this is that health coaches don't actually want to be sharing those things. They think that they have to share those things. They think that they have something to prove at the beginning. I need to show that I know what I'm talking about. So they state these facts, all of the nutrients in this recipe. And then they get people who are like, hey, do you know how much protein this has? And they're like, I don't want to like talk about these numbers. I don't even know these numbers. I'm Googling it every time. And it's like this, it's just a funny circle where it's like, you can actually share what you want to be sharing. You can share. And really what I found when I was health coaching is the simpler, the easier, the better. Like my clients wanted it real simple.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. I'm glad you said that. I was thinking that too. It's like simpler, the better. The more focused the message, the better. If you're saying the same 10 things over and over and over and over again, just in maybe slightly different ways, great. Like that, then you have a very clear point of view.
Yeah.
Cool.
Absolutely.
I love it.
I think you're probably right too, in terms of like this next step creation. Our school provides an outline for a program that people can use, but we want them to say, we kind of prefer they view it as like a chassis on which they're building their own version of. We finally, in the last year or so, built a totally turnkey program. But the ultimate goal, I think at the end of the day, I think Erin would agree with me, is for people to use it almost like they're on training wheels. I'm going to put people through this general program that generally aligns with what I want to teach people. And then once I put a few people through it, then I can kind of customize this and really kind of make it my own and eventually take the wheels off. But to your point, I think you've got a lot more passion for promoting something that you've built.
And what I've seen, you guys, is a coach who's confident goes a long way. Like the coaches who are like, I love what I created. I'm so excited about this. Like literally, I've had clients where they're like, Sarah, I'm not going to create a sales page. The tech, I'm not really into it. I don't want to create a whole sales page. And that is something that we really foster is like, hey, here is how you can do it and we can work through it. But if any of this doesn't align with you, guess what? There's another way to do it. And like, we'll find a way that works for you and feels good for you. And so she's like, I'm not going to do the sales page. We help coaches create sales pages. She's like, I'm not going to do that. She would just go live on Instagram. This is like 2 years ago. She would go live on Instagram and just talk about how she works with clients and how she helps them. And people would sign up just from that live. And she would have them Venmo her or send her a check. I'm like, there's so many ways to be a freaking health coach, and so many ways to sell your program and create your program. Like it's not a one size fits all.
Right. Well, to piggyback off what Laura said though, like we created a program because our students asked for it because that's what they thought they needed. Mm-hmm. Truly, coaches thought they needed us to make a program. And it's like, okay, we'll do it. But gosh, coaches listening, like, I don't think that's what you need. It can be very convenient to help you start your business. And I think to Laura's point, it's like, it gives you a framework and a template and you can tweak and adjust. But I really love the idea of coaches, building a program that is so like their program that solves the problem that they are this whole identity. I'm the specialist that solves this problem. And here's my signature methodology that I take everybody through. And, we just had this conversation with another guest recently where it was like, I'm really proud to say I do only one thing. And whether you take my one-on-one coaching relationship approach, or you do my group program, or you do my online course, it's the same. It's the same. I don't have 10 different ways of doing this. I really have one way. It's my way. I made it. Mm-hmm. And I love that. That just feels so cool to me.
Yeah, I like that too.
Yeah. So you teach programming. You teach folks to create and build a program.
Yeah. So unique program. So we at the Coach and Grow Co, we only work with those in the health and wellness space, which is really cool. You'll see, coaches come in and they all went to one school. However, they're passionate about different things. Like we'll have a coach who's passionate about breath work or spirituality or a certain way of eating, or like really like balancing hormones was like perfect for her, or another coach who likes to do muscle testing and run labs. And so they'll come in and we have a framework that we teach, like how to go about creating a program that gets clients from A to B, what needs to be included, how to price it, all of that. But they're different. They're all slightly different. They all have different things included. And then what's cool is, clients will come to me because I was health coaching for so long. And they'll be like, hey, do you have a coach who has a program about digestion? Like I want somebody who understands what it's like to be a mom and who's busy and then we can pull from the coaches in our community who have these really specific programs that fit like what clients are actually wanting and looking for.
Very cool. I love that because I feel like it's an infinite market. I feel like
Yeah.
the market for health coaches is infinite. You could have a very unique spin on any one of those topics, right? Like you could do the digestion thing, but your digestion approach could have this, I don't know, I'm the apple cider vinegar lady, whatever it is, right? I don't know. Right. I just think it's so exciting. And I just hope coaches listening get it as excited as like we are, because there is absolutely a market for your program. You just have to make it. You have to make it. That's the thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Love it. So people have created their program. So you said step 4 is launch, which sounds like one word for what sounds to me like a bigger process, but maybe I'm wrong. Someone's got their, they've got their niche. They've developed some social media following and content. They've created their program around it, and they're really ready to launch. And really do this kind of full time. What does that look like?
Yeah. So we have a few different launch processes depending on where the coach shines. So like you guys talked about, some coaches do shine on video and Instagram. So we're going to take the video route. Some shine via emails and writing, kind of like Erin was talking about. So we're going to take like the email marketing, like the freebie route. And so it does look different for each coach, but what it looks like is creating a launch plan based on their strengths and then implementing it. And I think the thing that coaches really struggle with is sticking with it when possibly, somebody doesn't sign up like right away. They don't sign up right away. And then it's like, oh my gosh, like I'm going to stop doing this. I can't show up anymore. I can't talk about this. And I think having the community and the support where it's like, hey, this is like what I did for like my first push. And then it's like, okay, let's analyze this. Let's look at this. Like how could we improve this? So we do a launch plan depending on the coach's strength, and then we implement that. Another thing that we really focus on is selling before it's finished. So a lot of our coaches will say within 15 minutes, I had my first client, and it's not because they just all of a sudden on Tuesday they're launching and it's like, hey, here it is. And then it's like a client signed up. It's no, they were talking about it for at least a month before it was actually ready for people to sign up. And I think that's really important. I think coaches, we think like, I thought this myself. I was like, oh, I need to have it all figured out and ready and perfect. And like the first thing that I created was an ebook, which nobody bought. It was only $27. Nobody bought it, you guys. I went on to sell a program that was $5,000 that people bought. So it wasn't like you can sell high ticket. But that with that ebook, I created it all alone. I didn't tell anybody, nobody that was following me. They didn't know I was creating it. And so now what I tell coaches is as soon as you start thinking about your program, start talking about it.
Right.
You're going to be the most excited when you're going through like the creation of it. Showcase that, talk about it, get people interested, let them come along on the ride. If you can create with them, they're going to be so much more inclined to actually sign up and do it with you.
I agree a lot with this. In fact, I think coaches should make the program with their clients. Like, I literally think there are some things you need to have set up, like a clear customer experience, like for enrollment and taking payment and intake, and maybe the very first session of the program. But you literally just stay like a couple days ahead of the client and they help you build it. Like, don't wait till it's done to start selling it. I launched the first time I launched my group program, which I've now probably done 15 times. I do it 2 or 3 times a year. I decided it was October the 16th. And I said, I'm going to do this November 1st. And I started talking about it. Hey gang, my group program starts November 1st. Get in on it. Here's the link. Here's the link to sign up. I had a link. That's all I had. That's the only thing I had. The program did not exist. And so I think, Laura, you told the story about this too, where like I would get like the night before the automated email was supposed to go out for this group program. I was writing it like tomorrow's day 7 of the metabolic reboot. I guess we'll talk about, like, I'm literally writing it as we're going through it. It didn't exist before I sold it. The idea of it did. And the link to buy it did, but nothing else did. And it was really successful. But here's another thing, because you talked about this too. I'm running one right now. It's going pretty good, but the one before was my worst one ever. It was my worst reboot ever. I had really like low enrollments, barely made any, didn't make any money. Like whatever, it was just my crappiest reboot ever.
Yeah.
And I was so excited. Like, wow. Okay. It's not working this time. Why not?
Yeah.
Why didn't it work? And I love just getting really clinical with it and just like not feeling beat up by it. Like, well, I guess I'm done. I guess I'm washed up and, this is it for me. It was like, what needs to change here? What do I need to do differently? Maybe the program needs to change. Yeah. And I think that's you kind of touched on that as well, is like when something doesn't work, we don't go back to the drawing board. We don't declare ourselves a failure. We bring it into the spotlight and just with no judgment and pure curiosity, analyze it.
Yeah. It's an opportunity for things to shift, right? Shift for the positive. But I will say, Erin, I don't know, for me, it's usually like, I'm done. I quit. I've been doing this for a long time, but when like something goes wrong, like usually I have this moment of like, is this worth it? Like, what am I thinking? I feel like you have like a very strong mindset around that, but usually like, yeah, like stuff like that's happened to me too, where it's like, I have this great idea and it's going to like all come together. And then it feels like it's falling apart and I go to like despair. But then like, if this is really what you're supposed to be doing, and people always ask me, can anybody like be successful as a health coach? And I always say like, yeah, anybody can create their dream business online, but just keep in mind, your path might change. You might start being a health coach and then like you become a mom and you have different ideas, or you want to go back to school and like, that's okay. It doesn't mean that you weren't successful or like weren't cut out for it. It's like your path changed and that's cool.
Yeah. The only time something is literally a failure is when you haven't learned anything from it. Right. Or you refuse to learn. I mean, I know people that have lost lots of money doing lots of different things, but they used that experience as a way to do something differently the next time and sort of refocus their efforts. And sometimes it is, no, that's not me. That was like, our mentor and our founder decided to take a look at restaurants on a whim. I think someone kind of talked him into it, right, Aaron? He went into like this franchise model and it did not go well. And he could have said, all right, well, let's kind of redo and go another direction. But he was like, no, what I learned is I don't know enough about that. Yeah. It's too risky for me. And there's other things I'm better at that I'm going to focus on. And it just makes complete sense. He learned a lot from it. And his other businesses that turned his attention to were wildly successful.
Yeah.
So you can honestly, from the standpoint of just experience, lessons learned, and I guess a thicker skin and some resiliency is really kind of what comes out of those things that don't work.
Yeah. I think one of like the best traits entrepreneurs can have is resourcefulness, like just being resourceful and being willing to pivot and see those lessons, because entrepreneurship, like owning your own health coaching business, it is such an opportunity for personal growth. Like I've grown so much just with like my personality and my traits and my habits, and my mindset running a business. And that in itself is worth it. Like I love the person that I've become from doing this work.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I want to go back because when I was sharing my little, yay, my program sucks moment. Like I'm not woke. I'm not some woke being that's really great with rolling with the punches. I developed that skill by becoming an online entrepreneur. Like, and wow, how grateful am I? Like I could still be punching a time card metaphorically at the advertising agency and just sort of phoning it in and having never flexed that muscle, never trained that muscle, the resiliency muscle. I'm just like, and you better believe that translates into every other aspect of my life because I had to practice it in order to become a successful health coach. And I just freaking love that. That's why I always tell our students, like, I know you're looking down the barrel of this business development project with terror and confusion and you're bewildered, but it's so fun. I always say it's so fun. People think I'm lying or joking or just being a stupid cheerleader, but it's like, no, it's fun. You won't even know how fun it is until you look back and remember everything you came through.
Yeah. Yay. I always say to my husband, Peter, I'm like, life's just a fun adventure. Here we go. Who knows what's going to happen? But if we can have that attitude, like it does become like more enjoyable.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like your approach is very, very inclusive because we have niching, we've got confidence, we've got social media, learning how to do it, creation and launching. It's like, that's everything, I think, right? But then people always want to talk about scaling and stuff. I don't know, how do you feel about scaling? Because before we pressed record on this conversation, and even you were talking about this sort of 5-hour work week kind of idea. I think the idea of scaling is inherently overwhelming. And I think somebody who begins as an online entrepreneur thinks, okay, at some point I'm going to have to scale this thing that doesn't even exist yet. And they get pre-worried about it. Yeah. And we can get ourselves really worked up into a lather, pre-worrying about things that aren't important. So I don't know, like with respect to this unhustle, 5-hour week, heart-centered sort of health coachy approach, how do you talk to people about scaling?
Yeah. So Launch Coach Grow, the program that outlines everything that we talked about today, that's for the new health coach, the health coach who we always say is like working on like $5,000 a month with their business, like consistent $5,000 a month with their business. You can get to that place with those 5 hours a week. However, there will come a point, especially if they're doing one-on-one versus group, where you run out of time with like your coaching clients, right? And so to me, that's where scaling comes in. And that is like, for me, like, we were talking about the coach who just like does one thing and all the thing. That's our second program. So we have Launch Coach Grow, and then we have Scale and Grow with Sarah. And so I think not every health coach wants to scale. And that's great because it's more, I always say it's more tech. Scaling as a health coach is more tech. If you hate tech, you can hire somebody to do it, learn it, which will take time, or you can not scale and, just do what you've been doing. And that's okay too. So I think that scaling can be done in a heart-centered way, but there are components that come into play, like the technology, hiring more help. Usually it costs more to run your business, like as it gets bigger. And that's, I would say what the difference is between those two.
That's cool. So the basic gist is you can scale if you want, but you don't have to.
Exactly. And like, honestly, like get clear on like, what do you want your life to look like? Right. What would you be happy doing? Because so many, I fell in that too. I was like, oh yeah, of course I'm going to scale, like, of course, all these people say like, that's what you have to do. And it's like more and more and more and more. And it's like, how much do I really need? I don't need all of that stuff, to be happy. That's what I want. I want to be happy. I want to have my peace. I want to help people.
Yeah. Before we hit record, we were talking about, how we can make this conversation different than so many of the conversations we've had around this stuff. And you were saying, do you think talking about burnout would be valuable, which we really haven't talked about at all. But I think this is kind of where that fits in. And so when you said something to the effect of being able to grow your business in less time and avoiding burnout. So I would love for you to kind of tie this all up with that in terms of this last message. Is it the organization? Is it prioritizing what's important? What's the message there in terms of growing your business in less time without the burnout?
I think it's being intentional, getting really clear on like what you actually want rather than comparing yourself to everybody else, right? Like really like going within and slowing down, like what do you want your dream health coach business to look like? And then like, where do we start? And that is like the 4-part process that I was talking about, because when coaches know exactly what to work on, they're saving so much time. So much time goes into, like me and Erin were talking about, like that avatar. They're writing all these posts about their avatar, and it's not landing, right? And they're posting on social media, but it's all these health facts and that's not landing. And so really like having this structure of like, okay, these are the 4 things you need to really focus on. And then in 5 hours a week, like being really intentional, you can get to where you want to be. And I think no matter, if a health coach joins our program or another program, like I think having that structure of like, this is something that like you can follow and it actually works. That is how we grow our business in 5 hours a week and avoid burnout. Because I always think about it like when it comes to growing and having success as a health coach, you either have to invest time or you have to invest money. Like you can do both or you can do either one. And so if you have not a lot of time, you're working another job, like then investing money can get you there a lot faster. So I think being intentional and then having a strategy that works and is in alignment with what you believe.
Right. I love it. Like a vision, just the vision of what your life to be like and how this all fits in. Because, it's really overwhelming is inauthenticity. As soon as you're not being authentic or in integrity of what you care about, like what's important to you, your values, that's hard. That's overwhelming, like 100% every time. So if we want to avoid overwhelm, we just got to do what feels right. And, but just getting clear on that is where to start.
Yeah.
I love it. Awesome. So tell people where they can find you.
Yeah, of course. So I am on Instagram a lot. So you guys can come over and say hello. So my handle is Sarah_Hagstrom. And then I also run the Coach and Grow Co., the handle on Instagram, where we share health coach success stories, tips, how to build your business, how to get started, like everything we talked about today in more detail. And then also, we're at thecoachandgrow.co. If you want to check out our website, we have lots of like free resources and trainings just to get started as a health coach.
Ooh,
awesome. Thank you so much. This was a blast.
Yeah, thanks for having me, you guys.
This podcast was brought to you by Primal Health Coach Institute. To learn more about how to become a successful health coach, get in touch with us by visiting primalhealthcoach.com/call. Or if you're already a successful health coach, practitioner, influencer, or thought leader with a thriving business and an interesting story, we'd love to hear from you. Connect with us at hello@primalhealthcoach.com and let us know why we need to interview you for Health Coach Radio. Thanks for listening.